Okay, guys, myself and Stephen are here. We're going to talk a bit about confidence today, as requested from the community, and the three things that we'd love to kind of get across today. So we've three objectives, and that is number one is to understand when confidence can be built and when it cannot be built. Number two is to understand the brain's role in confidence for children and ourselves. And also number three, we'd love you to kind of experience a little kind of personal realization on what we're talking about as well. So how this applies to me and go, Janie Mac, I never saw that before. So that's kind of that'll be our objective here. So without further ado, how are you, Stephen?
I'm good, Gav. How are you today? All well?
Yeah, all good, all good. So there's a little metaphor that I'd like to kind of start us off with here, Steve. And it uh, we can't let the simplicity of the metaphor, because I know a lot of people have heard this before, so we can't let the simplicity I suppose undermine the complexity maybe that comes after it. So the first metaphor here that we would talk about and people will be very familiar with is that obviously if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid. So we've heard that. It's a very famous quote, and obviously it's correct, and but it doesn't go maybe far enough in terms of it explaining, well, what do I do with that?
Yeah, it's very
So I'm
surface
sure,
level.
say that again.
Very surface level, that, isn't it?
Absolutely. But
Mm.
there's loads of truth in it, but we want to kind of dig into it, and we want to show the framework which exists behind this, and then speak a little bit about the methodology in which we kind of, I suppose, and how we anchor that in ourselves. So I suppose there's a nice way of thinking about this maybe also, and that's, if you were a Ferrari, if you close your eyes for a second, kind of go, right, I'm a Ferrari, and you're built for a very specific purpose, and that's to go really fast and to be precise and to be very responsive. And if you grew up on your racetrack and you spent your life on your racetrack, you can kind of see how your self-confidence, your trust, because confidence means con and feelings means wit, con is wit and feelings is trust. You can see how the trust in yourself would evolve as you're kind of doing what it is you're supposed to be doing. You can see the belief in yourself would evolve because you're immersed in what it is that you are made to do, and you see your self-worth will all, I suppose, evolve as well, because you're built to be racing, you are racing, you see yourself getting better, you see racing as meaningful for you, and you're like, I kind of really liked spending my time racing, and so you feel self-worth in that pursuit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, yeah. It's like in the area that you're interested in, it's kind of the area you're supposed to be in. And then you're kind of more confident within that area.
Absolutely. And then, so if we kind of just take that analogy a little bit further and we go, okay, right. So obviously, if we imagine I then shift you gradually off your perfect road and I move you to a little bit of a bumpy road, how does that make you feel? You know you're a Ferrari. You're like, geez, I don't necessarily feel your confidence might, I don't necessarily feel I'm made for this. You might be a little bit anxious. Your wheels aren't made for this surface. You just feel there's a misalignment here. And if we move you all the way down that until you find yourself on a mucky field, you're like, this is not who I am. This is not what I'm made for. This is not where I want to be. And all of the feelings associated with that will manifest within the car.
Mhm. Yeah. And then also on that, it's about like during the kind of experience of this, like if you're confident it's in the area that you're on the right track, excuse the pun there with your analogy, if you're on the right track, going off the right track, just even a small bit would be you kind of uncomfortable a bit, but you know what to do to navigate yourself back on. But we spoke about a little bit about, and what if you're in that field and you actually don't know that you're a Ferrari and you
So,
are,
yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So in the context, the very first context is, you're a Ferrari and you find yourself in a mucky field and you're like, this isn't me, this isn't who I am, I'm not meant to be here.
Mm.
But the brilliant thing there is that you're a Ferrari. But as you just said there, the next issue, imagine you find yourself, on the mucky field or not on your racetrack. You are a Ferrari, but you don't know you're a Ferrari.
Mm.
Okay, now that's another problem, because now you don't know why you're not feeling the way you feel. You don't know why you're not responsive to the environment. You don't know why there's other people, other, tractors and stuff that are able to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not. You can't concentrate. And
Say
again,
about the different factors and stuff. So in those two factors, when can confidence be built and when can confidence not be built, I suppose. So if you're can confidence be built on you're on the right track? Can it be built on if you're too far away from the field? Or when can confidence be built and when can confidence not be built?
So, the framework in terms of how we operate, how our brains operate, is that just like the Ferrari on the wet, mucky field, like down in Bennett's Bridge here, and out in the mucky field, you will never be able to fulfill your potential. You will never be able to fully trust yourself in that environment, never be able to fully feel the self-worth in that environment because there's a mismatch in terms of what you're designed for and where you are. If you don't know that you're not designed for this field and you think you are, so you're kind of going, I should be able to do this. I should be able to kind of operate the same as a tractor here. In this is what we call, you're effectively going to live your whole life in survival. And the part of the brain that you're going to be living in is your amygdala. We won't go too much into it, but it's effectively your fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. So that is the part of the brain where you will be living your life from. Okay. The next issue, if you want to take this analogy a little bit further before we bring it right back to how we operate, is imagine you don't know you're a Ferrari, but imagine nobody else knows that you're a Ferrari. And so then it's not like parents understand who you are, your teachers know who you are, or anyone around you know who you are. They don't. And so not only are you lost in yourself, but there's no one else around you that can kind of help you. All they can do is encourage you. But then it comes to the encouragement. I mean, if I'm think about yourself, if you were a Ferrari and you were on a mucky field out in Bennett's Bridge here, and I say, keep on going, Steve, you're doing great, you're doing great. Okay, at the very beginning, you might go, okay, I'll keep on trying. But after 10 years of it, you're going to be like, I am not good
Yeah.
at this. What
Yeah.
is going on here? How come you can do this and I can't do this?
Mm.
And I think that really speaks to the frustration and the frustration, the hesitation that you're going to feel in your life if you live in that particular environment or in that particular mismatch.
Mm.
Does that all that makes sense in terms of building that kind of analogy?
Yeah. 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 So like it is when you're in a space that you feel confident in and a space that you feel comfortable in and that you are kind of naturally motivated to be in, you can build confidence from there because you got a stronger platform as opposed to if you're lost in that mucky field. Are you saying that confidence can't be built then because you lack of trust, you've got a lack, it's a mismatch?
So 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 again, when you were, and we'll bring this right back. Imagine if you're taking the analogy there, your wheels, you've no grip on it, you're trying to move through it. That takes self-confidence. That takes self-trust, for example. So as we said, it is going to be next to impossible for you to build trust in yourself to move through this field. So to answer your question, it is the probabilities that you're going to experience high levels of self-worth, self-confidence, and self-belief are greatly reduced if there's a mismatch. Okay. Now I know we're talking very broadly at the moment. We're going to become very specific. We're going to take it. We're going to come very specific with this, but we really want to ground people in this particular, I suppose, in this particular analogy of Janie Mac. You know what? I would be in trouble if I found myself in that scenario. Um, and also just to mention there as well, just I see in front of me here, the comparison trap comes in massively there. So like as we spoke before, if you're a Ferrari and you see tractors doing their thing, it's the why can they can do it, and then there you put them up on a pedestal and you in the pit, and it's a very very tricky place to be, and it's always going to be this comparison. You're judging yourself against others because you're not also inspired to be in the field. The tractor's inspired to be in the field. That's what he's made to do. The same way as the Ferrari is inspired to be on the track. You know what I mean? But let's bring this into the parallels in terms of, I suppose, how we work and the stuff that you'd see in schools, I see in schools, I see with the people I'm working with, elite athletes, with children, with ourselves. The brain works precisely the same way. Precisely the same way. When we operate from, let's call it our highest value, our highest priority, and I want to mention here that highest values are not, working hard. They're not the social niceties. When we mention values, we're not talking about the corporate values that you hear about, or, what do you value? What would you like to value? I like to value family. We're not talking about them. They're a completely different type of value, what we're talking about here. So when a human being is operating according to its highest priority, its highest values, their brain automatically moves to their prefrontal cortex, the prefrontal areas, the most advanced brain regions. And take the Ferrari example. That allows the person to be most resilient. Why? Because the brain, when you're in the prefrontal areas, it literally shuts down the amygdala. And the amygdala is the thing that wants to escape from the pain of the moment or move to an immediate gratification in the moment. So when we're doing something that's highest on our value list, we're massively resilient because the brain perceives meaning and purpose in it. In this area, you are most disciplined, you are most reliable, and you are most focused. In the areas of your lowest values, and see this in yourself as a parent, see it operating in your own life, as you move down further away from your highest priorities, your highest values, you will hesitate, you will frustrate, and you procrastinate. All of us think about it here. There's areas in life where you're completely inspired to act, where you're disciplined, reliable, and focused. And there's areas in life where we're lazy, we procrastinate, we frustrate, and sometimes we don't understand why. So the next piece of this, Steve, and stop me by the way if I'm going to, because I know this is my language. So you stop me when I'm going too far into this, okay? For anything needs to be clarified. So the next question that normally comes up is, oh yeah, or people necessarily don't understand. They think that, okay, well, a Ferrari is made to be a Ferrari, but we're just people but we could be a blank slate. But this couldn't be further from the truth. And our highest priority, our highest value is hardwired into us. It's like it's a software that we are born with that evolves from day one. And our hierarchy of values are our software that governs us, that the things that decide what we value come from the things that are most meaningfully missing in our perception from that time. So, for example, for me personally, when I grew up, I remember again, I was in high level sport, I was in going through school, and I always felt it kind of like I didn't really know who I was. I kind of was like, if I'm in a crowd, I was like, I kind of felt like, yeah, but a little bit awkward or a little, didn't really know who I am. And this, let's call it this uncertainty, this void of lack of self-certainty in someone kind of, it created a highly meaningful value of trying to understand who I am. And so from, 14, 15, 16, 17, like 22, 20, always I was looking for and searching for how to feel more self-certain. And so it places a massive value on understanding myself, which you can see at play. Like you know me,
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 25 years. Teaching and talking about human behavior is one of the most inspiring thing I do, but it's all linked from the void that I felt, one of the voids that I felt from very, very, it's like a golden line that's followed me the whole way, that was there, that was driving. So if you can imagine, when I'm speaking and talking about human behavior, I'm like a Ferrari on my track.
Mm.
I'm focused, I'm
Yeah.
disciplined, reliable. But you get me talking about, you know, I don't know, me, what is, there's,
Anything like, yeah, it's something that's completely way off your radar. Yeah, you shut
cooking.
down and yeah,
I can't remember it. Cooking,
yeah,
if there's food recipes, I'm not interested in that. I just don't, I can't remember it. You tell me recipe, but you put me back into where I'm, and suddenly the mind switches on. They say we have attention surplus order in the area of our highest value, and we have attention deficit disorder in the area of our lowest values. And again, there's a hierarchy there in terms of, how people feel it. But everyone has areas where they're ADHD, ADD, and everyone has areas where they have attention surplus order. Like with a child, put them in front of computer games. The guy that has a very high value on computer games, they're super disciplined. They could stay there for hours. They won't go to the toilet. They won't do anything. You put them in doing homework that they're not interested in, and suddenly they want to escape the pain of the moment and move towards something that's pleasurable.
without
Is
going
this
too deep,
make
without going too deep into those kind
Yeah,
of areas, go back to kind of the stuff we were discussing there, like the brain's role within, say, confidence and things like that. You were mentioning that about the living in the prefrontal cortex and then the shutting down the other areas. Is that like that's a natural response from the brain, when you find your area that you're most interested in, and that's what values are really. It's the area that you are most inspired, as you said, you're most comfortable in, and you're more resilient in. The brain's role within that, would that be more of a natural response?
Absolutely, and this is where the neurology, your biology, you can't avoid this. And there's an ancient Greek aphorism called "Know thyself, be thyself, love thyself," and effectively, that's what their whole philosophy was. All our job is to know ourselves so that we can be ourselves, and when we're being ourselves, we can love ourselves and feel self-worth. And when we translate that into our biology or neurology, when we are doing something that we truly value, that we feel is most important to us, we're operating from our advanced brain regions. Literally, the blood, glucose, and oxygen will reroute and literally flow into this area. However, if I change you and I put you in a completely in an area where you're no longer interested anymore, that you find this like inspiring, like look at this in work. There could be areas in work where you're doing something that unconsciously or consciously it's actually on target, on spot, and you're like totally engaged. And then I move you slightly to the side, and you're like, just I hate doing this. Literally, you'll drop into your amygdala. The blood, glucose, and action will flow into your amygdala. You'll trigger an amygdala response. You'll want to avoid it. You'll get frustrated. You'll hesitate. All of these avoidance and pleasure seekings. You'll grab a chocolate bar. Have you
Oh
ever
yeah.
looked when have you ever been when you're doing something inspiring, have you ever looked for a chocolate bar to interrupt you with it?
No, you
No.
wouldn't. Yeah, because
You're just
you're
engaged in it.
100% engaged, focused on that
Absolutely.
task, and because you're getting, I suppose, that chocolate bar from the pleasure seeking that you're getting when you're working through those things, and you're, as you said, you're naturally resilient in there. You're getting the feedback when you're
Absolutely.
doing something that you're nearly like resisting, and like I'm guilty of it myself. There's loads of stuff, as a principal, you do in the office. Like I wanted to work in a school, so I didn't have to have an office job, and now as a principal, I have an office job. It's funny, but I love it because it's the interaction with the kids and stuff that I still get that value from. But there's paperwork that you have to do sometimes that all of a sudden you need to go get a coffee. You know what I mean? Or you'll need to go to the
Absolutely.
toilet, and you'll just have to just take that little breather to go back into it, and nearly like reset your mind to and it's effort.
Absolutely. Now, and it's really worth at this point now because I can hear people kind of going, yeah, but you're going to have to do stuff you don't like doing. You're like, my kids have to do, I have to do stuff that's not inspiring to me.
Mm.
Absolutely. And but the first piece, and I'll come back to that piece right now, right? But the first piece is to understand the behavior. Why is it happening? Okay, so to recognize it, this is not highest in my van. Now, this is something we'll chat about in kind of further in different courses that we do then line and as things progress here. But when you find something that isn't, let's call it, aligned with the highest value, then there's a process of linking where we bring along. So, for example, if it's the paperwork that's not that in your mind, this is not linked to the helping a child break through a certain problem, or you know what I mean? But if we spend 20 to 30 to 40 of linking how that paperwork is actually serving you in your highest value, suddenly the brain starts waking up because it sees a connection between the thing that it's doing that it perceived as not meaningful. And now it's suddenly go, oh, I can see the connection. A perfect example is you see this in weddings the whole time. I know my own wife, my own self, like, the gym mightn't have been high on some people's, value list. They might struggle to go there, but suddenly the wedding comes along, pictures, the day in front of everyone, and suddenly the brain links up gym with this, and suddenly you're inspired to go to the gym. So it's just a small example how this thing happens naturally. But yeah, that's but, but moving on from there, it's all well and good talking about this and seeing the logic, but you go, okay, but how do I know what's highest on my value list? And this is the real kind of, I suppose, breakthrough. This is the real thing, that the most important thing. And it's the bit that probably the education system is failing at massively, because there's so many, I suppose, because of the way it's set up, it's one to many. So it's not set up to give this, I suppose, individualized, you know, attention. But we can you can be brought through a set of questions that effectively examines what it is that your life demonstrates
Mm.
is important to you.
We have those questions as well, don't we?
Yeah, we'll go through those, and that we'll kind of show people this and we bring them through. But like this is probably one of the most powerful things one can do. I've had, you know, the toughest MMA fighters in here when we bring them through this, bring when they understand, "Geez, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing." And I never really understood it, and they connect with the inspiration as to why I'm doing this. I've done this with my mom 15 years ago, where she was judging herself for giving up her career and being, you know, staying home with us. And she was seeing her friends setting up businesses and this and that. And when we brought her through this process and she connected with her highest values, the tears started coming. She goes, "This is what I dedicated my life to. This is what this I know. I can see why I did what I did, and I didn't want to do anything else before." And this process, when we bring, you know, adults through it and we bring children in schools through it, it roots them in their highest value and it allows them to know themselves.
Yeah, it's
And once they know themselves, exactly, it's like now they're the Ferrari on the field, but kind of going, "Oh, I'm a Ferrari."
mm,
And this, when I'm on this, and then they can start to see that, like, you know, their discipline around their focus in this area.
mm,
But they see it with crystal clarity. It's not just a kind of a broad generality,
yeah,
but, and that's the part of the know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. You will not be yourself. You cannot be a Ferrari if you don't know your Ferrari. So the first thing is rooting people in their highest values, getting them to understand what is most meaningful. And we bring them through these 13 questions that do that. But
yeah.
is not to go too far into this, like,
Yeah,
because I
no,
know
this is
we've given
perfect.
people
And then
a lot of stuff.
along that journey, along those questions, and a lot of the kind of self-reflection and things like that, that like there will be a lot of the personal like realizations come from that as well, because it's a time to be honest with yourself, isn't it? You sit down, you do a lot of kind of like honesty, you do work, you put a lot of thought into it, things you might not put thought into before, to get that clarity.
Absolutely. I'll just give you a very quick example here. I was working with two parents recently who had a teenage son who was having difficulties, and they didn't understand what was going on. And the difference between the work that we're looking to show people is that this is not once you, the parent, us, we need to, once we completely see how it's relevant to our lives, once we integrate the work into our lives, we can then help our child and our teenagers to integrate the work. So to give you an example, what I mean by this, um, I was working with as I said, with two parents there, and the father was like saying, you know, as it always is, you know, the way he's lazy, he won't get up out of bed, I can't get him into school, you know, and all this. And it was like he was comparing him because in his mind that he was this guy who was, you know, he was inspired about what he did. The dad, he was, you know, had a big business, and he was up early in the morning, and he just couldn't see why can't he do this? I'm trying to, and it was driving him mad. But we brought him through his values. We did the process with him, and the dad ended up seeing very clearly the slivers of area where he was most inspired in terms of his business and where he had all his achievement traits, as he was disciplined, his drive was focused, he was resilient. But we were able to show him he had the exact same and displayed equally the exact same traits as his son did in
Mm,
the areas that were completely uninspiring to him. And
yeah.
his wife was sitting beside him and she was laughing at him, kind of going, "You are exactly the same as he is this." And then the realization was, hold on a second, we're judging our child according to, he is completely uninspired about the stuff
Yeah,
he's doing at school.
he's in this
And,
lane at the moment. Yeah.
and this is what we're saying. He was the child was the Ferrari. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know he was a Ferrari. His parents didn't know what he was. Then we started examining the 16-year-old. We started looking, we went through his values and mountain biking. He loved manual labor. He was up Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, someone could collect him. And suddenly the parents were able to start saying, hold on a second. Okay, here's where his discipline, he's
Mm.
reliable, he's focused, he's resilient, you know,
Up early motivators. Yeah.
he was where he was exactly. And he's not. So this starts the process of kind of understanding. And the first to come back to the very start where we said is you cannot develop true self-confidence, self-belief, self-worth if if you do not know yourself, if your teachers don't know you, if your parents are not the sliver. We're not talking about interests, we're not talking about preferences, we're talking about core drivers that have come from core meaningful voids that have been running through your life. Last thing on this, just to clarify, your brain, as we said earlier on, is literally running this software in the background. It is running this software, and all it wants to do, it's like a meaning-seeking organ. Once the meaning dial kind of turns up, it starts to expand. It goes into its advanced brain regions. As soon as the
Mhm.
meaning starts going away, it will go and it go back into its fight or flight, avoid the pain, immediate gratification. That's where you get your addictions. All of this side of stuff comes in because you're living in lower values, hedonistic lifestyles, as opposed to moving into areas where thrival, where you're inspired, where you embrace pains and pleasure in the pursuit of your purpose.
Yeah.
But I suppose, Stephen, do you think, again, we don't want to go too much into this, do you think we've achieved our three objectives?
Yeah, I think it's been a great chat, and again, taking it from the good visual and the good kind of representation of what we are trying to do with the Ferrari and the tractor and the field and the track and that kind of thing. And there was a couple of things we touched on. Just the third lesson objective that we were talking about at the beginning was the personal realization. But we kind of hope that people from listening to this can link that and have that personal realization. But as discussed, there is a process. There's a step-by-step process that we can and will be going through. Um, Kind of
It's
down the
just,
line.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, Stephen. On the your own personal realizations, you're listening to this, a very easy one just to do is, where, if you're judging your son, your teenage daughter, your teenage son, your child, if you're looking at them being lazy, literally just go, where am I equally lazy? Where do I display that equally? And just look at the areas that you really do not like doing,
Mm.
that, in areas where, and it's not things that you do but you don't like doing. We're looking at areas where you're just like, oh man, geez, I'm desperate there. And we'll find them. And like, it's there. I've
Still
done this
there.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. It's there. And then look at the areas where the sliver where you're completely inspired. Like, you'll have every trait and you'll display it literally according to that hierarchy of values, that hierarchy of priorities. But look, I suppose last thing here is this: questions. Please, if there's any questions here, clarifications, disagreements,
Mm.
anything on this, please post them up there, because if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it, and it will give us an opportunity to get it out there. And nothing is stupid. Post it up there. We'll deal with it, because what we're trying to create is an environment here, a space here where we can just get stuff out, get to the root cause of stuff, and develop something that develop like I suppose a methodology which is from the ground up, is there's no cracks in it. And we want people, if they see a crack in it, if you see anything, you see anything that we say that you don't believe, or you don't question us on it. I
Yeah,
don't
and
believe
also
that. What do you mean by that?
there's that public forum as well. You can post on the school platform, but there's also there's DMs there if you wanted to get into the kind of the direct messages of it, and there's also our email addresses that you have access to on the website and that kind of stuff as well. So like your voice will be heard if you want to get something across. It doesn't have to be on such a public forum if you're not comfortable doing that yet. But as we grow, it's a community where we're going to be working together on it. So your feedback is always taken on board and welcomed. And as Gav said there, the disagreements and stuff where real kind of conversations can happen, all welcome. So again, yeah, listen, thanks a million for listening. And again, reach out if there is any queries whatsoever. All right, Gav.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone, for watching.